Look alive, I'm already videoing.
Okay. Windsor Castle is known as the oldest and largest inhabited castle in the world. Now that it's the 1-year anniversary of the coronation of King Charles III, I think it's high time that I publish the video about our visit to Windsor Castle from May of 2023. When we arrived in Windsor, the place was buzzing with coronation excitement. There were touristy gift shops overflowing with souvenirs, dress shops enticing you to buy a fascinator, and even donut shops encouraging you to be patriotic. The city of Windsor is a very touristy place, so if you go there, expect that. Are any of you like me? Do you love statues of Queen Victoria? I do. They're my favorite. It's a good thing that this castle is massive because so are the queues to get into it. We arrived at 12:30, which is the time our tickets were for, and there's a line of like 500 people all waiting in a queue to enter at 12:30. We saw some nice purple allium flowers and magenta roses on the walk up to the castle. As a personal note, I'll remind you that Ian and I were married in July of 1992. We had a wedding reception in California, and then a couple months later, another reception in Illinois. And then at the end of November in 1992, we came to England for our third wedding reception, this one with all of Ian's British relatives. If you know Windsor Castle history from this time frame, you'll know that a big fire in the castle happened just a couple weeks before our first trip to England as a couple. Then we got busy with children and visiting family, and it's taken us 31 years to finally make our first trip to the castle. This is the impressive entrance gate we walked through onto the castle grounds. I'll be filming loads on the outside of the castle since no photos or filming are allowed inside the castle. As I was walking through this gate, I noticed that it was called St. George's Gate and had this depiction of George slaying the dragon above it. And as I wandered around the castle grounds, I was interested to note the names of so many monarchs on archways, buildings, and gates. Windsor Castle is the oldest and largest castle still occupied to this day. It has been a royal residence for over 900 years, with royals in the castle continuously since William the Conqueror in the 11th century. The castle is truly massive, covering about 13 acres. It's a large complex of different buildings, including the state apartments, St. George's Chapel, and the private apartments of the royal family. It's interesting to see these really ancient parts of the castle and then going around and seeing all these other different areas that were obviously built in different eras. It's really hard to film here at Windsor outside because the planes flying overhead make such a racket, and it's impossible to film inside because it's prohibitive. So it's a little challenge vlogging here. Like Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle has a changing of the guard. I really enjoyed watching this tradition because it is a ceremony steeped in history, discipline, and precision. St. George's Chapel has stunning Gothic architecture and is the final resting place of many monarchs, including the most recent, Queen Elizabeth II. The most moving part of our trip to Windsor was seeing Queen Elizabeth's tomb in St. George's Chapel. I was surprised how emotional I got. Unfortunately, it was a very popular place people wanted to visit, and the staff there hurried you along very quickly, so you just got a few seconds to pause and ponder. When I saw some women curtsying as they stopped in front of the tomb, it made me tear up. I'm sharing this official photo of the tomb from the castle because, of course, no photography or filming was allowed. There have been lots of coronation decorations around, but this one is my favorite. Look at the detail. It's just amazing. The horses and the footmen, the gold carriage, crown. Here in the Castle Cafe, I noticed this clock with the Queen Victoria mark on it. Whilst here, I felt the need to get a coronation-themed sandwich and a coronation-themed dessert. We also had an egg and cress sandwich and a strawberry cheesecake, which had a wee crown on it as well. All the food was quite tasty and gave us a bit more energy to continue exploring the castle and grounds. The artwork in the castle is just astonishing. So many works by master painters and so many lovely paintings of monarchs through the centuries. I wish I could share with you on video the beautiful pieces of art I saw inside. Windsor Castle has played a significant role in British history. Countless royal events have occurred here, which make it an iconic symbol of Britain's continuity and heritage. When King Charles comes to stay at Windsor Castle, he enters through this passageway and then comes over here to this corner of the courtyard, which is the royal family's private apartments. Normally, I would have posed with Weston for this photo, but due to his unfortunate shaving mishap, he was not letting me film his face this day. So this is the only glimpse you'll get of Weston in this vlog. Okay, so let's talk about if people should visit Windsor Castle, yes or no?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. There is a lot to it, and it's all in really good condition, really well maintained, and despite the queues getting in, once you get in, it's not as overcrowded as Buckingham Palace was. The one thing I think is kind of annoying are the airplanes. If I were king, I'd say no way, no airplanes going over my castle.
Yeah,
it's really noisy and disturbing, and kind of disturbs
when you're outside the castle, but you don't hear it inside the castle.
Yeah. The other thing that's a little disappointing is that there weren't any gardens per se to view.
No public gardens. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a little disappointing, but
yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, I think it was well worth it. Even though it's expensive,
so
I think it was
£30.
Yeah, it's 28 if you buy in advance,
which is similar to the price of Stonehenge. So I would definitely come here instead of Stonehenge if you can only do one.
Oh yeah, and I would probably get here right at the end of the day or right at the beginning of the day to have the least crowds. But the crowds weren't a huge problem unless you were going and seeing the doll's house. That would have.
Yeah, don't go see the doll's house. The queue to that was hundreds of people long. I can't imagine how long that took.
Yeah.
And, for me, a big bummer is that you can't do any photography inside the castle. And so that was definitely a downside for me. Yeah. I'm glad we came to visit Windsor during the month of King Charles's coronation. It was a special time to celebrate a new monarch whilst remembering the phenomenal prior monarch who had just passed. We were walking along the Queen Elizabeth II walkway, and we encountered these guys, which I thought was very appropriate. I felt as tired as that corgi at this point in the day. If you watched last week's vlog of Richmond, you'll know that Ian discovered his favorite gelato shop ever there. But that vlog was filmed a couple weeks after this one. So for our trip to Windsor, Ian ate at this gelato shop, which is his favorite one in Texas. We have eaten at Amarino gelato shops in multiple countries and states in the US. They are famous for making flower-shaped gelato scoops in the cone. But that's not why Ian loves it, he just thinks it tastes great. As we leave this part of Windsor, I have to show you this green post box I saw here, since they are a rather rare sight. Overall, Windsor is a very tourist-trapped kind of town. But the prettiest place in Windsor is here along the river, where you can take a look at some of those beautiful white swans that belong to the crown. Next, please check out one of these videos of my visit to Blenheim Palace or my visit to Alnwick. Thank you so much for watching, and do something good in the world today.